The adventures of the new version of The Flash continued this week with the release of Absolute Flash number 6. In this universe, there's no such thing as the Speed Force. The Flash isn't a legacy hero, and he doesn't have a vast support network. In fact, he's a lonely teenager, Wally West. His mother had passed away when he was young, and since then he had moved from state to state for his father, Colonel Rudy West's job. Colonel West is currently the head of security at Fort Fox, home of Project Olympus. This facility is responsible for creating super soldiers, and they have a lot of different experiments on the go. And young Wally got caught in one of them, which gave him his powers. As a consequence of this accident, he can move at super speed and experience time in a non-linear fashion. He can relive past events, unable to change them, and get glimpses of potential futures, one where he's a beloved hero and another where he's a beast. In a fit of anxiety, Wally ran away, dragging Dr. Barry Allen with him and accidentally killing him. Colonel West will stop at nothing to get his son back, although his colleague Dr. Elenore Thawne is less interested in reuniting his family and is more into studying Wally, presumably so she can replicate the accident that gave him his powers. Along the way, a group of miscreant super soldiers, codenamed the Rogues, were sent after Wally, as well as a psychic green monkey named Grodd. However, Grodd felt that he and Wally were kindred spirits, and he helped Wally escape. In the last issue, Wally and Grodd had taken shelter in the Iron Heights district of Central City when they came across another Project Olympus alumni, Mick Rory, known as Heatwave. In this universe, he's an out-of-control beast made of magma, hurt and confused, lashing out at anyone and everyone. Wally was able to drain Heatwave's powers, seemingly reverting him to normal, and then fled the scene. Colonel West, meanwhile, has been digging into Project Olympus and discovers some strange things in a warehouse. And that brings us to this issue. Now, most of this issue is a flashback to the formation of the Rogues, about 6 months ago, before they got their powers. We get some insight into the kinds of people they all are. They had all been part of a disgraced unit who were dishonorably discharged from the military. Digger Harkness is a drunken lech, first seen getting thrown out of a bar for hitting on a guy's sister. Leonard Snart dotes on his sister Lisa, who lost her legs in conflict and is not dealing with her injuries very well. And Jesse James is a paranoid little creep who implanted his teammates with trackers, just in case their former bosses came for them in the middle of the night and whisked them away. Tying them all together is Colonel West, who travels across the country to bring them all together. He was their former commander and knows them all very well. When he was put in charge of security at Project Olympus and they needed willing test subjects, Colonel West immediately thought of his disgraced troops. The chances that they would survive the procedures were relatively low, but their lives were so depressing that they would likely accept because they had nothing else going for them. When Colonel West brings the 4 of them to the base, they are introduced to the project leads, Dr. Elenore Thawne and Dr. Barry Allen. So, yes, in the Absolute Universe, Barry Allen is responsible for giving powers to the people that would be his enemies in the mainline universe. And that's not all he's responsible for. We get a good look at several Flash costume designs on the screen behind him. Mirror Master is clearly shown using his mirror traversal technology. So much for my theory that the Absolute Mirror Master might be Barry Allen. And I'm pretty certain that the guy in the stasis pod is Ronnie Raymond, given that they talk about how they're trying to give someone the ability to alter objects at a molecular level. Sounds like Firestorm, right? When the Rogues are told that they're being turned into weapons and are shown what awaits them, they're actually quite excited. Jesse notes that the technology is unlike anything he's seen before, and he seems to be the chronically online type that spends his time reading about conspiracies, so I guess he's an expert in the field. While Barry Allen doesn't tell them where the tech came from, we are given a glimpse. We're shown a brief flashback to an experiment in 1944. The facility is in the Mojave Desert, which in the real world was a test site for the US's nuclear weapons. Here, they have some sort of reactor and 2 men look on. The first man is in awe, and we're told that his name is Thawne, Eobard Thawne the Reverse Flash most likely. And the second man, who is horrified, is identified only as Garrick. Presumably this is Jay Garrick, who in the mainline universe is the Golden Age Flash. When Garrick tries to disrupt the experiment, Thawne pushes him into the energy of the reactor, thinking it would kill him. However, he undergoes a change, and looks very similar to how Wally looked after he interrupted Barry Allen's experiment. So perhaps there is more than one speedster out there. Somewhere. Barry Allen seems to know all of the details because he smirks when telling the Rogues that the information is classified. This tells us what kind of man this version of Barry Allen is. He's aware that these experiments are dangerous and harmful. He knows that people are at risk of becoming monsters, but he doesn't care. He gladly welcomes more test subjects, saying that he'll make them gods. Egotistical much? I also wanted to note that Dr. Elenore Thawne is present the whole time, but she doesn't actually say a lot in this scene. She tells the rogues that if they don't go through with the procedure, then they're facing prison, even though none of them seem to be particularly hesitant about it. But I get the feeling that she's a more pivotal person in this process than it seems. Note that in an earlier issue she reminded the rogues that she was the one to give them their powers. No mention of Barry, so perhaps he's more of a mouthpiece than scientific lead. That would certainly explain why his own experiment went so disastrously wrong. Back in the present day, Colonel West finds himself in the secret hangar of Project Olympus, which seems to house spacecraft and aliens in stasis. Despite his previous attempts at calling Wally going unanswered, he calls a final time to speak to his son, as if it could be his last. He uses his time well though, cutting straight to the point. He has made mistakes. What happened to Wally's mother wasn't his fault, and Wally is loved. While he initially gets the answer machine, this time Wally picks up, but the two can't have a meaningful conversation because Thawne and her soldiers nab the Colonel and drag him away. It's a very menacing cliffhanger, and we're left wondering what will happen to the Colonel, now that he seems to know too much about the origins of Project Olympus. But I'm still left with a lot of questions. What was so dangerous about the rogues' procedure that it risked killing them? Captain Boomerang has a mental connection to his boomerang drones. Golden Glider's prosthetic limbs allow her to fly at great speed. But what about Trickster? What are his powers? And Captain Cold? Assuming that's even what he's called here. Given how close the rogues seem to be to Colonel West, I can't imagine that they'll take too kindly to Thawne harming him, especially after she lied to them about what happened to Mick Rory in the last issue. I suspect that she will have a rebellion on her hands. Absolute Flash number 6 is available now from all good comic shops. If you are based in the UK and don't have a comic shop near you, then you might want to use my affiliate link with the UK's biggest comic book retailer, Forbidden Planet. I have included a link in the pinned comment on this video. Alternatively, if the idea of hoarding a collection of comic books fills you with dread, you really don't want to see my comic box Jenga Towers of Doom, you may want to try getting a digital copy of the issue from Amazon. I also have an affiliate link with them, which you could use to help my channel out. This is also included in the pinned comment. To those that have read this issue, what did you think? Wasn't it sweet how hard-nosed Colonel Rudy West said goodnight to the picture of his wife and a much younger Wally? It's a time in his life that has passed, but he still holds it in high regard. I wonder if we'll ever see the story of the rogues going AWOL and taking a bribe from a foreign leader. I think that'd be pretty fun to see. And that massive green gorilla that gave Digger such a fright, if I didn't know any better, then I'd think it was one of the super apes. Not Grodd though, maybe Solivar or potentially Monsieur Mala. That would be a wonderful reference. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Next time. I'll be back next week to talk about 2 more Absolute comics. Up first is Absolute Martian Manhunter number 6, which is the conclusion of the first storyline before the series goes on a brief break. When last we saw John Jones, things weren't looking too good for him as the insane minions of Darkseid planned to perform an operation on him. I'll also talk about Absolute Wonder Woman 11, where Diana will face off with a mysterious figure in the depths of the labyrinth beneath Area 41. Did I mention that she's off her nut on hallucinogens? This will be interesting. Hope to see you then.